for sure. So I think, again, it's been nothing new. We've talked about it a few times, had a few other agreements related to some other aspects of it and some few other projects. So the next sheet is the actual agreement itself. That's for the grade crossing surface repair fund. That would be the agreement that the city enters into with the Canadian Pacific Railroad and the Department of Transportation. And then on the continuing on, there's a work statement that identifies the value of the work that would be completed under the aegis of this project. And then also the last sheet is a proposal contract that we had with Heartland Asphalt for a portion of the work that the city would be responsible for under the agreement as well, involving some sidewalk that we added to the project, as well as the transitions to the grade on the street. So just in way of some background information, as I mentioned, we've been working on this for a few years now. There are kind of multiple components to the project. So the first component of it, the Buddy Holly Place roadway improvements, those involve traffic signal improvements at the highway, as well as roadway configuration, railroad grade crossing surface approaches, including sidewalk extension, and also railroad crossing signals and gates. And again, these are things that we've all been approved for funding previously. You've had these on your agenda for the signals and the gates. That crossing agreement has already been approved with the Department of Transportation, as well as the agreement for what I refer to as sort of the phase one, which is again the Buddy Holly Place roadway reconfiguration, and then the traffic signal interconnect at Buddy Holly Place that involves a number of improvements to the heads, as well as the box and things that go along with that signal as well. So just as a reminder, last fall the city had entered into a contract with Complete Concrete and the amount just under $50,000 for phase one of the project. As I mentioned, that was the portion that consisted of the roadway improvements and modifications to Buddy Holly Place. As part of that phase, again, we make modifications to the traffic signal at Buddy Holly Place and interconnect it with the new railroad signal and signal heads that would be then again realigned to the revised roadway configuration. This portion of the project we've estimated about $155,000, and although the city is upfronting all of those costs, those are 100% reimbursable to the city from the department. The next phase of the project involves placement of the new railroad crossing signals and gates. If you recall, this is a very competitive program, and it's based on need, and the Railroad Division of the DOT has a backlog of projects for this, so we've been on their radar screen for a while on this particular location. The estimated cost of those improvements, approximately $250,000 to $300,000. Costs are funded by the Iowa Department of Transportation and Canadian Pacific Railroad. So the railroad actually does the work, and then the department reimburses the railroad, in this case, 90% of those costs. Of course, that's under, again, a separate agreement. We also have another agreement with the DOT. This is the portion that, again, we're talking about this evening for the crossing improvements. So that's estimated about $106,000. Again, as I mentioned, there are additional improvements that the city wants to make, including sidewalk improvements, roadway transition to the tracks, and those are estimated about $37,000. So the total cost of this phase we're thinking is probably in that $150,000 category. This is the portion, again, that's under consideration for the approval of the agreement this evening. That's on a 60-20-20 basis, with the department funding 60% of the cost, railroad funding 20%, and then the city funding the remaining 20% of those costs. So if we go to the agreement, I'll just kind of highlight some of maybe the more relevant points of interest in the agreement. As I mentioned, we've been underway on this one for quite some time. So if we look at page 3 under section 3, it indicates again that the project shall be completed within 18 months of the signing of this agreement. So that's about as near as I can tell you at this moment as to the worst case scenario when the project might be completed. So if that were the case, we would probably be looking at close to a 4-year effort on this project. So again, sometimes things take a little while, and for good reasons. There's been staff changes at both the DOT and the railroad on these things. So traffic control is the next item below that, the highway authority. So that is the city. We are responsible for establishing and payment of the traffic control, so that things like barricades, signage, detours, and those kinds of things. And then also, again, we are to be notified by the company, which in this case is the railroad, of the approximate start date, and that's to be a minimum of 60 days in advance of the approximate start date, and then also a little bit past that, you'll see 14 days in advance of the actual start date where it is received notification from the company. Again, if we go to page 5, section 8, just again, as I mentioned earlier, this is on a 60-20-20 cost share basis with, again, the department, which is, of course, the DOT, funding 60%, the railroad funding 20%, and the highway authority, which, of course, is the city, funding the remaining 20% of the project. So, I guess I don't have anything further on that, unless anyone has any questions on the agreement or any other background information. I'd be happy to respond to those.
Basically, that lane change has already occurred.
Yes. Yep.
All right.
Yep. That was done under the auspices of the contract with Complete Concrete. It's about a $50,000 public improvement project, and so again, we're upfronting, holding that, and when the project's completed, we'll file for a reimbursement of those costs as well as the cabinet controller and other traffic signal equipment purchases that we've already made, plus installation of those things. So we'll wait till the end of the project and then submit our request for reimbursement there from the DOT.
In other words, when you work with all three entities here, Iowa DOT, the city, the railroad, there's a little time involved here.
Yes. And it won't help to, Gary offered to strap himself to the tracks and scream and yell, but throw a tantrum, but I said that won't help. So.
I do have a question,
Sure.
Scott.
Yep.
I noticed on Heartland's proposal, they don't have railroad flagger or railroad insurance figured in their bid.
Okay.
That's the first time I've ever heard of that.
Okay, well, and that was just a rough estimate, so I mean, as we get closer, we'll pin that one down. So that was mostly for budget purposes, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, I'm sure we'll have to have that, like you say.
Well, they'll have to have it.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Any other questions or comments for Scott? Thank you, Scott. Therefore, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Buddy Holly Place Surface Crossing Repair Agreement. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Bennett, seconded by Gary, that we approve the Buddy Holly Place Surface Crossing Repair Agreement. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you. To 6B, purchase of a 2021 Exmark Laser Z 60-inch rear discharge commercial mower. Review recommendation to award purchase. Jeremy Kornberg, Public Works Director. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We had a new mower budgeted for the 21-22 budget season. So we took bids on those. We got a bid from Swartzrock Implement over in Charles City for an Exmark 60-inch rear discharge. And then we also got a bid from Floyd and Leonard over Mesa City for a Toro 60-inch rear discharge. This will be replacing a 2012 Exmark 60-inch side discharge. This one has over 2,500 hours, going towards 2,600, I believe. So we do put a lot of hours on these every year. This one actually has been one of our backups for the past couple of years. But so we've gone to a rear discharge the past couple of years to prevent, the blowing of the grass either into the road or across headstones or onto the road, and rocks and debris. Usually it helps out a little bit. So we received those two bids. Swartzrock was the low bid with trade. They were providing a $1,500 trade-in, which we would suggest taking. I think the last time we tried selling one, it was actually a 72-inch, a little bit bigger, and we got just north of $1,500. I think it was maybe $1,700. So rather than going through the whole bid process on that, I'd just suggest taking the trade. But with trade, their bid was $9,522. Floyd and Leonard's with trade was $9,775. Again, I recommend going with the Exmark. It's what we currently have our entire fleet of. Just kind of helps with maintenance and limits the amount of parts we have to have on hand. And they've been really good to us for service. And yeah, so any questions?
Council, any questions for Jeremy? Thank you, Jeremy. Therefore, I'll entertain a motion to approve the purchase of the Exmark Laser Z Model 60-inch rear discharge mower from Swartz Rock Implement, Charles City, for a total of $9,522. Motion, please.
So offered.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Dana, that we approve the purchase of the mower. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you. 6C, Parks and Recreation Maintenance Worker Position Job Description Review. Creighton Schmidt, Director of Finance. Welcome, Creighton.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The job description here is in yellow in your packets. This new park maintenance worker position actually replaces what we had before as a maintenance, but it was a seasonal position. Was full-time hours, but just seasonal. This new position, it incorporates some different areas that weren't in the previous position, different public buildings, parking lots, and other spaces. It also adds some new licensure and certification requirements. The 3OT ornamental and turf spraying, the mosquito spraying, the certified pool operator, which will mostly go towards the maintenance of our aquatic center, and then also CDL with tanker endorsement. So really, the ability, adding these requirements, the ability to help out somewhat in public works, and also in the winter time as well with the increased CDL requirements there and helping out with snow removal as well. And then just overall looking at the department. So we had before, we had a director, the assistant director, and then the seasonal summertime employee. But now looking for, we have the interim director right now and Jim Jackson, and then this position too. So just those two full-time positions would be the idea moving forward. So overall a cost savings in that department, but adding this new position that actually takes in and does a few more things than what we've had in the past.
Council, questions for Creighton? Thank you, Creighton. Therefore, I'll entertain a motion to approve the position of park maintenance worker.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Bennett, seconded by Mike, that we approve the position description. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. 6D, City of Clear Lake Employee Cafeteria Plan, Section 125, Internal Revenue Code for plan year ending June 14th of 2020. Review. Creighton, welcome again.
This one is in purple in the packet there. So the city, we need to update our cafeteria section 125 plan. So what this plan allows us to do for our employees, basically for their health insurance, for their HSA, things like this, it allows us to offer those at a pre-tax basis. So rather than having the monies taxed and then having to pay for them, it allows us to do it the other way. So this is something that we've had for a number of years now. We just need to update it, and actually we're also going through Wellmark with this plan, so they're able to provide us the correct documents and make sure that we're doing it in the right way.
Council, any questions for Creighton? Thank you, Creighton. For entertain a motion to approve certificate of resolution, excuse me, which is Resolution 2131 by this city council. Motion, please.
So offered.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Dana, that we approve Resolution 2131. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Mark?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
And Dana?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0, and Resolution 2131 is duly adopted. 6E, purchase and lease of weight and fitness equipment for the Wellness Center. Review, Adam Long, Wellness Center Executive Director. Welcome, Adam.
Council.
In your packet on the green, what I wanted to do was take you through a couple of the different pieces so you guys could actually see what I was reviewing the previous meeting. So the front page there says the Matrix Touch Control. Those are the little iPad touchscreens that'll be on the majority of the cardio equipment that we talked about, has all the different types of interactions. Trying to make cardio more fun. That's what this is trying to do. I don't think it'll work, but I think a lot of the people and a lot of the members will enjoy having these types of options for their cardio machines. The next page, on the back side there, that's just the name of the brand. We went with Life Fitness, the Insignia Series for the majority of all the machines that we're going to have there. Again, went with this company for this particular, these pieces of equipment just because of the high level, price, and just the functionality of all the different machines that we have here. Very, very good company, and priced it right. On the opposite page there, that's the Air Runner, the treadmill that we talked a little bit about. So this one, it's not like all the treadmills that we're utilizing for the cardio. This is more of a higher intensity type of treadmill. It's a free runner, no electricity on this one. I mentioned it in my last review. You can actually increase the resistance on this treadmill so you're able to almost run against a force as you're going. So pretty cool to have one of those in the facility as well. A lot of people will like that with the curved treads. On the back of that, that's the big piece that we noticed in that fly through, the little jungle gym cable crossover machine. So essentially all it is, it's a high functional crossover machine with a couple different attachments with the lat pull down and the seated row. Obviously has a little bit different of a design with monkey bars across. So pretty cool piece there by Torque. Then on the last page, that's just, we utilize Elite FTS as well. Those are just the power racks that we'll have in the backside of the fitness area for the free weight section. So some of those. So again, obviously not all pieces, but I wanted to put some of the higher end pieces that we have on there so you guys can see it when I'm kind of describing it. The next couple pages, the reason why I wanted to put the Johnson Fitness quote in there more so than anything is because this is the company we utilize for the majority of the equipment. Also, the lease is attached on this too. So how we did the lease for the cardio equipment we talked about, we have a purchasing all the strength equipment, and we're going to lease all the cardio equipment. We broke it up into two different leases. So if you see that on the on the second quote there, Option 1, touchscreen cardio slat belt treadmill. Down there on the bottom, you'll see it's $114,000. We're doing these for a 3-year lease. So what we wanted to try to do is cycle the new equipment in, so we weren't getting all new pieces every 3 years or every 5 years. It's going to kind of cycle through and kind of adjust that way. So people know that, you know, they're going to get new equipment not every 5 years, but we're going to get it 3 and 5 years. So the pieces that are a little bit more utilized, that are going to take a little bit more of a beating, we're going with the 3 year. So we got the treadmills, the Octane X1, and then the indoor spin bikes. Next page, and then on the back of that page, it'll kind of explain the leasing options that we have. We're going with the 3-year lease on that. Then it talks about on that page the FMV, the fair market value, if we do decide to purchase that at the end. I don't see us doing that. As you can see, they depreciate pretty quickly. So I think it'll be a good idea to be able to get new technology and new equipment in. The second lease there on that next page, the one for $64,450. These are a couple other pieces of cardio equipment that we have that we're going to utilize a 5-year lease on these. So we have the climb mills, which are the step mills, ellipticals, and then a few of the recumbent bikes, along with some new step trainers. And again, this one's going to be utilized every 5 years, changing those out. Same thing on the back of that one, describes the lease. We'll do that one, the 60-month term for the 5-year. Last page is kind of, and again, I spoke to you guys about this in our review. I utilized 3 different companies and basically got a bid for every piece of equipment by each company. You can see how I kind of picked and chose based on the equipment, based on the pricing, based on some of the lead times that we needed. But more so than anything, it's the companies that I know and I've utilized in the past, and I wanted to kind of pick and choose and be able to. I know this company utilizes this company utilizes this company utilizes this, and kind of went from there. So you can see the total purchase price down there at the bottom for our equipment, $171,746.67, and the total lease, $178,510. We're looking at a total about $350, $256.67. Anybody have any questions on those pieces of equipment?
Council, any questions for Adam?
Yeah, just a quick comment, being an old person. I don't remember Grandpa Ed Heitland's hay rack having any of this touch screen stuff or the hay mow. And the only phone was the party line in the house. But so this is kind of overwhelming to me, so I'll just sit back and shut up.
We'll learn it together.
Any other questions or comments for Adam?
I might just add, we reviewed this, whatever the date, the Wellness Center Committee met towards the end of July and went over all of these things. It was unanimously supported by the Wellness Center Committee as well to proceed with the equipment purchases and lease purchases that Adam's gone over. And, you know, like we've talked about so much on this anymore is these, the lead times are so critical anymore, and he's going to give an update under his report on some other areas like furniture and that. But I think the sooner we can get the order in, the better on some of this stuff. The last thing we want to do is have the facility built and then no equipment in it, so.
Page, I added the lead times we were looking at. The longest one, 12 to 18 weeks with Johnson Fitness. And again, that's going to kind of vary between items, not everything. Everything basically will get shipped to Johnson Fitness, and then they'll deliver and assemble for us.
Just a note on what Scott said, wasn't directly related, but this morning, you know, Adam, Scott, Doug G., Superintendent, and Mr. Ludwig, the AD, met for over an hour, and, you know, it's our belief that we are going to make this work and work for both entities here, the school as well as the city, and as much as possible. I overuse this word, but it definitely will be intergenerational, not just the high school kids, not just the adults that want some daily fitness or weekly fitness or whatever it might be, but we will work together on this, and that's critical. Therefore, if there are no more questions, Council, I entertain a motion to approve the purchase and lease of fitness equipment with regard to our wellness center. Motion, please.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Dana, that we approve the purchase and lease of fitness equipment. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. 6F, sanitary sewer lift station pump improvements, North Shore Drive and East Main Avenue. Review a recommendation to award purchase. Mr. Kornberg. Welcome again.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So again, for year 21-22, we had budgeted for some sanitary lift station improvements. So we have our East Main lift station and our North Shore lift station. And as of currently, we do not have a backup or a generator for those. So if we lose power, we have to go out and manually hook up a generator and run it all night. So we had budgeted for this to provide a generator with an automatic transfer switch. So if we lose power, we have a diesel generator that can run for 24 hours and continue to pump those sanitary lift stations. As part of this, our East Main lift station, the two pumps that are there are currently are right around 20 years old, and the seals are starting to go out on them. We've been having some issues with stuff getting stuck in those, so we are going to use this as an opportunity to upgrade those pumps as well. Combined, we had about $64,000 budgeted for these upgrades. We received a couple bids, or we went for bids on the generators. We received one bid from Electrical Engineering and Equipment out of Des Moines, and the other company that we were communicating with, Pioneer Critical Power out of Minnesota. They actually chose not to bid because of lead times. They weren't sure when they could get any, but 3E out of Des Moines was able to bid a Kohler 30 kilowatt generator. And we were getting two of those. We'll run the same generator at each station with an automatic transfer switch. For both of those, with freight and startup, the bid was $38,863.52. We took bids from Quality Pump and Control out of Mason City, Iowa. They're the company that actually does all of our maintenance and works with us when we have issues with our lift stations. They're local here, and they're very good on their response times. If we have overnight issues, need to call them for any call outs, anything like that, they're on call. So they bid the two new pumps. for the East Main lift station and the two pumps together was $13,676. So combined, that leaves us about $9,000 left to finish the rest of the upgrades. So that's the electrical upgrades that have to go along with it, pouring some concrete pads for them, as well as we're going to be building a couple small shelters over top of these so that they're out of the elements. Because every single time one of these has an issue, it seems to be in the middle of a rainstorm. So when we're opening up these electrical cabinets, we've decided it's a pretty good idea to have some coverage for that. So other than that, the generators have about a 33-week lead time, so the generators will not actually get installed till the spring some point. We are able to get our hands on a couple of the transfer switches possibly, so we'll be able to get our electrical upgrades. And I think it's 6 to 8 weeks possibly for the pumps. So we'll get the new pumps put in and the transfer switch in, but we won't actually get the generators probably till the spring. So, but we've been working with Alliant to get the electrical upgraded, and we have that kind of all scheduled for this fall still. So with that, any questions?
Jeremy, the pumps we're replacing, are they in good enough shape to be refurbished and used for backups?
With talking to him, he said, I mean, they're a 20-year-old pump. I mean, you could probably, he said, but replacing those seals, you're going to be putting, you know, probably $6-7 into them. And it's or not $6-7 between the two of them.
But would those pumps work in another lift station?
In another lift station, they would not work on our East Main. They're different size pumps. So they're a 10-horse pump. I can't remember how many horsepower North Shore is, but they are a different size pump. So.
All right.
They could be kept as a backup for East Main if we ever had any issues. But our systems are set pretty good. They can run off of one, but they currently alternate. And then if the flows get high enough, they'll both kick on. Rarely, unless since I've been here, we had a couple instances of where both kick on, and that's mostly in the.
I was just curious about this because out at the sanitary district, they refurbish theirs for backup.
Okay.
So if they have that.
It'd be something we could talk about, because we haven't really decided what we were going to do with them. I could ask Jason.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this should eliminate the situation we have now where power goes off and we have to haul our portable generator like out by the golf course there. And
Yep.
do that. So this will.
Yeah, so we'll get alarms, and not always, but a lot of times they'll get the alarms for power outage. They'll go out, check it out. By the time they go back to the generator, reel it out there, start getting, a lot of times power come back on. Other times, we do have to use it for an extended period of time. Our current generators don't have a 24-hour capacity, I don't think, on them, so they're obviously out there monitoring. So as you know, one of our generators is actually very old. It's the one that came from City Hall, I think, when they redid it up here. It's an old gas generator, so it's not really efficient. So. But this will allow us to get rid of that one. We'll still keep the old transportable generator as a backup.
33 weeks, but that's the name of the game today, and he had a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But they can get it, so that's a good thing.
Any other questions, comments for Jeremy? Thank you, Jeremy. Therefore, entertain a motion to purchase from the electrical engineering in Des Moines, the, what are we calling it, generator and automatic transfer switch in the amount of $38,863.52, as well as the Quality Pump and Control in Mason City, the $13,676 for the submersible pumps. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Gary, seconded by Dana, that we approve the purchase of the sanitary sewer lift pump improvements. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you. 6G, 2021 alley reconstruction, 600 block Buddy Holly Place and 400 block of Main Avenue. Enter Mr. Flores. Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We'll go through the items here in the packet with you. The first white sheet there is a resolution ordering bids, approving plant specifications, form of contract, and notice of bidders, fixing non-bid security, and ordering clerk to post notice of fixing fees to proceed the same for public hearing on plant specification, form of contract, and estimate cost. So again, if you just look at those items there in your packet, just give you some background information here. Essentially what that resolution does is set the date for a bid letting. So the bid letting on the project would be held September 1st at 11 a.m. Here in the council chambers at City Hall. And then also we would have a public hearing on the proposed plan specifications. Form a contract estimate of cost, that would be at the council meeting on September 7th, 6 o'clock here in the chambers. This again is on the reconstruction of 2 separate alleys. The location of the alleys to be reconstructed, of course, is the 600 block of Buddy Holly Place, the east alley there, and then the 400 block of Main Avenue, just east of the former corner thrifty drug store. The city budgeted $300,000 for alley improvements in fiscal year '22. Of course, this is not, this is well below that threshold. Both alleys involve reconstruction projects, full-depth reconstruction of the existing commercial alleys using 6-inch thick PCC paving. In the case of the Buddy Holly Alley, as we've talked on this one previously, the condition of the alley surface-wise has deteriorated substantially. Alley's pretty much in an aggregate, kind of a granular condition, and of course, because of that deteriorated condition, the stormwater drainage is quite poor in the alley. So, case of 400 block of Main, we talked about this quite a bit at a couple of meetings ago. The alley project was mostly driven by private utility improvements from Alliant Energy. They're undergrounding their electrical services there and lines, so it's going to require the removal and replacement of quite a bit of alley pavement there. So consequently, as we talked previously, we want to take the opportunity to make some below-grade improvements to our infrastructure where they'll be removing the alley pavement. So we're talking about things like the storm sewer as well as the sanitary sewer, and then also take an opportunity there to tie in the roof drains from some of those buildings into the new storm sewer improvements that we put in. As I mentioned previously, Alliance would be reimbursing the city for 50% of the pavement restoration costs. So we've looked at this project as a proposal to bid this project as a straight PCC paving project, but also with a bid alternate that would sort of pedestrianize the alley, if you will, and mirror those improvements that we implemented between Clear Lake Bank and Trust and Starboard Market here a few years ago. So getting the numbers on both, so you'll be able to have at your discretion at a future meeting to see how both those numbers look and make a decision of how you want to proceed on that. So, you know, in the case of the straight PCC alley, if we still wanted to, I mean, we could still look at that one and say we're just going to do straight PCC and not the colored stamped, and tear out the sidewalk, put the drive approach, put in brick paver sidewalk, build the curb back up, and add some parking there. So, you know, there's a number of things yet to consider, but I think we can do that after we have the bid letting, see how the numbers come in for both of those projects, and then just again evaluate at that time. In terms of the project schedule, the schedule calls for the notice to proceed to be issued on or about September 14th, completion date mid-November. Estimated cost of construction, you'll see there in your packet, for the Buddy Holly portion of the project is $67,349. And then we have the estimated cost for construction for alternate 1 on the 400 block, as that's the one with the pedestrianized improvements, the bollards, the colored stamped concrete and so forth. That's just under $100,000. Alternate 2 without those decorative PCC or bollard improvements, et cetera, is about $76,000. So I don't have anything further on that resolution unless anyone has any questions.
Council, any questions for Scott?
We'll anticipate publishing the notice on August 18th. So other than that, I don't have anything else.
And that hearing is September 7th, correct?
Yes, the hearing on the plan specs will be September 7th, and consideration of award will be on that same night.
The bid letting is September 1st.
Right.
All right, got it. Any other questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott. Review of preliminary plans and specs, Jason Petersburg, Veenstra and Kim. Welcome, Jason.
Mayor, Council, in your packets is an excerpt from the plans for the 2021 alley reconstruction project. Scott explained it pretty good, but segment 1 is the alley just east of Buddy Holly between 6th Avenue South, 7th Avenue South. At one point in time, this alley was paved. However, it has deteriorated to the point where it's pretty much gravel at this time, has some drainage deficiencies. So construction on this alley will include What limited removals are left to be done for the pavement, excavation and grading, a new 6-inch thick concrete paving that'll be 16 feet wide, that'll be over an aggregate base course, and then new drive approaches on both ends. This alley work is strictly at-grade improvements. There is no utility work planned on this alley. I will note that Alliant is doing a project down in this neighborhood as well. There is one pole that's in the alley. To eliminate that pole, we're doing quite a bit of electric upgrades in this area to get all that electric buried as well. Segment 2 alley is located downtown just north of Main Avenue. This alley work will include some utility work. It'll include a new sanitary sewer main and services, minor storm sewer extension, a new storm sewer intake, and then the new roof drain system that'll be piped to the storm sewer line. That'll be constructed prior to the alley being reconstructed itself. The intent is to bid the alley downtown 2 ways. Will include closing the alley, constructing the brick paver sidewalks, the decorative concrete, the bollards, etc. is one option. And the other option will be essentially putting it back the way it is, keeping the alley open to through traffic out to Main Avenue with conventional gray concrete. After accepting bids on this, the council will be able to decide which alternate they would like to proceed with. Cost and schedule, Scott covered that, so any questions?
Council, any questions for Jason? Jason, this will hopefully relieve some of the drainage issues for those businesses along there?
Correct, drainage issues we'll keep the water in the alley away from the buildings themselves.
Any other questions for Jason? Thank you, Jason. Therefore, entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2132. This is a resolution setting the date for the hearing and letting on the 2021 alley reconstruction project. That's the 600 block Buddy Holly Place and the 400 block Main Avenue. And the hearing will be September 7th, 2021 at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. And the bid letting will be here at City Hall, 11 a.m., September 1st on 2021. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Gary, seconded by Mike, that we approve Resolution 3132. Is there any discussion? Mike?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 2132 is duly adopted. 6H, Iowa CDBG coronavirus funding, CDBG-CV grant application for 2 North 4th Street Upper Story Rental Housing Conversion Program. Intro, Mr. Flory.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, the pink sheets in your packet deal with this item. The first pink sheet is a resolution setting the date for 2 public hearings to apply for, as the mayor mentioned, CDBG CV, Community Development Block Grant, Coronavirus Grant Funding for an upper story rental housing conversion project with CRJ Properties as developers, and requesting input regarding community development and housing needs assessment. And then the last pink sheet is a copy of the public hearing notice that will go in the newspaper. I think we're anticipating that for this Wednesday, August 4th. So in terms of some background information, I'll give some background information, then our Myrtle Nelson with the COG is going to review a little bit of the mechanics on how the program works with you. So the state of Iowa has initiated what's called an upper story rental housing conversion program. Some of the notable things: the activity is limited to existing buildings to either rehabilitate unoccupiable units or convert existing space into new units. All space has to be vacant and unoccupiable at the time of the application, so we anticipate making this application by September 1st. Unoccupiable is defined, and it means an existing space that is not currently able to be occupied or would not be occupiable with minimum minor improvements such as painting, flooring, cosmetic updates, etc. Unoccupiable units are units that have been unoccupied for at least 5 years and will require major improvements and possible code updates to allow someone to reside in the unit. Also, the units have to be located in existing downtown. The developer must be a for-profit entity who owns the building or will own the building. The maximum award per project under this application would be $500,000. That maximum amount includes funding for CDBG grant administration. So if the grant were awarded, NIACOG would be the administrator of the grant. Applications have to be submitted to the Iowa Economic Development Authority through a municipality, so thus the request to the city, in which the housing project is located and in coordination with a CDB experienced grant administrator such as NIACOG. Project includes, in this particular case, at 2 North 4th Street, a conversion of upper floor of the corner drug building from retail office space into 3 apartments. Project is proposed by Mr. and Mrs. Wood, who own several residential properties here in Clear Lake. I think you've seen them at several of our council meetings in the past, so no stranger. The first floor was gutted and renovated for retail space. The apartment layout will include 2 two-bedroom apartments and 1 one-bedroom apartment. The potential grant, of course, would be a pass-through from the city to the developer, and it'd be on a reimbursement basis. The assistance to the developer would be provided as a 3-year forgivable loan in the amount of $500,000. As I mentioned, with the 2 items in your packet, we're required to hold 2 public hearings, which would take place at your meeting on August 16th. Again, the first hearing would focus on obtaining input into a community development and housing needs assessment. Input is requested from the public to identify needs and projects to improve the city. Second hearing is to focus on input regarding the submission of the CDBG CV housing conversion grant application itself to the Iowa Economic Development Authority for the development of residential apartments in an upper story of downtown Clear Lake at the building located at 2 North 4th Street. So I would also mention that the tenants in this particular case would be under a period of income restrictions, so there are guidelines pertaining to maximum annual amounts of earnings that future tenants can have. So again, it's kind of a unique program. I was talking to, I think maybe Gary or someone earlier, and we were talking about Clear Lake does not routinely get CDBG funding. And the only time that we've had it in my 20 years here was the infamous Holy Cow project, and it took the flood of 2008 in order for us to be eligible. Normally, we just do not meet the standard eligibility requirements for community development block grants, which for communities like Clear Lake are typically things that benefit low and moderate income people on a wider percentage than just kind of a targeted area type of thing. And even for us, it'd be difficult to achieve that. So we did get the CDBG in 2008. 2009, somewhere in there, for the flood relief, and it was again under a special appropriation to the CDBG program just for that. So this is almost a similar kind of project. It's on a first come, first served basis, but again, the coronavirus has opened up these opportunities through the state CDBG program for these kinds of housing rehabilitation projects, and in this case, it's specifically geared towards rental housing, conversion of upper story unoccupied space on second stories downtown. So again, I think it's a good project, ticks all the boxes. So like I say, it's on a first come, first served basis. So getting the application in quickly would behoove the city and the applicant. So again, housing is, especially rental housing, is always an important thing, and especially those that would benefit persons of low and moderate income type incomes would be beneficial. So like I mentioned, it's just a pass-through from the city, so the city would be the actual recipient of the grant, so it would show on our books if the grant would be awarded. Other than that, we don't have really any cost in the project itself. So I don't have anything further in terms of background, unless anyone has any questions of me.
Council, any questions?
Just introduce Myrtle Nelson. Myrtle and I talked on the phone about this earlier last week, I think it was, and she introduced on the call saying, "Scott, how long have you been there?" I said, "Well, it's almost 20 years, and she's been here equally as long." And she said, "How is it that," because when I started out in the field, she started out in the field at the same time. And so how is it that we've never worked on a project until now? So she's aged much better than I have over those 20 years. So, so she's done a really good job. She's succeeded a good friend of mine, Joe Myrie, over at the COG over there. Joe did a fantastic job for a long time over there. So we're lucky to have Myrtle in his absence now, guiding a lot of counties and a lot of cities in the state, helping them out. So, it's a pleasure to work with her on this project.
Any questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott, and welcome. North Iowa Area Council of Governments, commonly known as NIACOG.
Yeah, that's why we say NIACOG, right? Quite a mouthful, but and Scott nicely took kind of the list of what I was going to say and pretty much covered pretty much everything. So I'll be real brief. Hi, Mark. So the state really is interested in workforce, much like all of us. And so they look at this program and funneling the CARES Act money that they received into workforce. It used to be that as economic development organizations, we were really concerned about creating jobs and businesses and developing those. And we're still concerned about those things. But of equal height is our workforce. And so one of the primary issues related to that is what kind of housing we offer them, both to recruit them and to keep them here. So the state funneled money into this program. It's not cheap. It's providing $500,000 for an upper story project, but because they also believe in creating strong downtowns, this program tries to check really two boxes here. So what they're doing here is trying to address both of those things. And so the total budget for this project is about $1 million, not quite. It's not cheap doing these. That's not an unusual figure. That's the kind of dollars I'm seeing in other projects as well of similar size. And so what they do is they do put a cap, as Scott had mentioned, on the income of the people, but it's like $40,000 to $50,000. So we're still in that workforce range at that level. So 2 of the 3 units would need to be within that range for the tenants. Nicely, they only have a 3-year period where that applies. So after that 3-year period is gone, they can rent to whoever they desire. You know, obviously, as they're going to put that kind of money into a unit, they're going to get a good quality tenant. And we're seeing some pretty impressive things actually happening in these upper story projects. Let's see, one other thing. They wanted me to mention too that sometimes with downtown projects, there's a concern about where are people going to park. And so I know that the developers in this case are taking a look at where do we position them, the cars. And so they're looking at what their options are in terms of off-site parking. At the next meeting when we do the hearings, you'll hear me really just kind of read off a very prescribed list of what we need to cover with the application. And we're also going to go through another list, which is the Community Development and Housing Needs Assessment. It'll look at 3 things. One are what are the low and moderate income needs in your community? What are the general needs in the community, not necessarily low and moderate income? And then finally, what are we going to do as a community? Sorry, I think of myself as a team player. But what are we going to do as a community to address those needs? So really, we'll work with Scott. We'll come up with a draft so that we're not dry when we come into that meeting, and we'll ask for public comment around that. So we'll read that list, ask for changes. We'll get that out in the packet, right, Scott? Yep. So that you have time to kind of chew on that and see if there are things that you want to change. Whatever that document ends up looking like is fine. They don't have limitations or expectations in terms of what the document looks like, as long as it's not, 1 or 2 things. They want a little bit of a list, but altogether there's maybe 20 things on the whole page. So that's all it is. So do you have questions for me?
Council, any questions?
Just one. You mentioned after 3 years, some of the grant rental agreements go away. And does that open it up for anything? I bring this up for one reason. Well, one of the current things going on in Clear Lake that makes it more and more difficult for what we could call affordable housing is short-term rental. So I guess I would be disappointed if after 3 years, these became short-term rent by the week, rent by the day. And to me, that would kind of harpoon the whole intent here.
Sure. The form of the assistance is what's called a forgivable loan. That forgivable loan has a period of 3 years. It's not like a conventional loan where you make payments. It essentially works like a grant as long as they keep the property for that period of time in the rental use. Once that 3-year program is over, they don't have limitations on what they use the property for. However, I can tell you that the owners do own rental property, and that's what they use it for. It's just for rentals. It's not short-term rentals. Am I misspeaking, Jessica?
We have 21 rentals, 2 short-term rentals. We don't intend on making those all short-term.
That was my impression as well, that is their intent. And these will be very nice units.
Any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
that. Therefore, entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2123, a resolution setting the date and time for 2 public hearings, which shall be August 16th, 2021 at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers, to apply for a CDBG CV grant application for an upper story rental housing conversion project with CRG Properties LLC as developers, and requesting input regarding a community development and housing needs assessment. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gary, seconded by Mark, that we approve Resolution 2133. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Gary?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Mark? And Mike?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 2133 is duly adopted. 6I, been a long time since we've had an I in this area. Whitaker's Court Sanitary Sewer Project, intro, Mr. Flory.
These are in the packet, these sheets will look like Gary's shirt again tonight, so these are the yellow ones here.
Pick on Gary tonight or what?
Have to all the time. So this is an interesting project. I was joking around with Jason earlier about it. This is something I think when the previous Public Works Director, Joe Weigel, was here, him and I were probably involved in some projects down here. Mike knows this area obviously extremely well. It's right in his next door area. But I think we were involved in some sewer issues down here probably 15 years ago, and it was kind of a conundrum of a situation. It involved private sanitary sewer mains, and some of it ran under some houses, and it was an old like 6-inch clay tile, and collapsed in a lot of areas and causing sewer backups. And since it was not a city main, property owners were adversely affected by that and calling the city, looking for help from us about what we could do. And since it wasn't ours, we couldn't really do anything. We didn't have any easements or anything like that. So we've got, I think, what is really a kind of an exciting opportunity to sort of clean this scenario up, if you will. So this is what we call Whitaker Court Sanitary Sewer Extension Project. And if you look in the yellow sheets, the figure 1 in there is a map that kind of highlights what the scope of the improvements that we're talking about, and Jason will talk about those here in just a moment. But you can see this area is the area that's bounded by 4th Avenue North to the north, 3rd Avenue North to the south, North Lakeview Drive to the west, and then, of course, North Shore Drive to the east. Well, there's the area, you'll see the dark line with the S in it, and that is your sanitary sewer line that runs through there. There's a home, if you're Dave Tice house there on the corner, the house just east of his former residence is going to be demolished. And that individual, I think his name is Mr. Reese, has gotten approval from the city's Board of Adjustment to build a new home there. So essentially be tearing that home down to build a new home at that location. The interesting thing there is, of course, that sanitary sewer main ran directly underneath that property. So once that structure is gone, we'll have the opportunity with him to make improvements there. So he would be improving the sanitary sewer main and getting it out from under the house and improving it and all those sorts of things. And that's that green line that you see there would be the new sanitary sewer line. So he took it upon himself to visit with, I think there are 11 parties that would be affected by this project, to visit with all of those folks. I know Jeremy and Jason have been involved in meetings with that group as well, talking about the improvements that would be made there. So what they've talked about is the opportunity to sort of piggyback onto Mr. Reese and his improvements, and improve the rest of the sanitary sewer line. So turning services that would tie into it, the whole line. So it'd go from a 6-inch private clay line that's dilapidated, collapsed, and horrible shape, causing sewer backups, to a modern code compliant 8-inch sewer main. It's about 225 lineal feet in length, involved construction of a couple of manholes in the project as well, and there'd be about 11 services that would tie into this line. There would be easements that would be granted, dedicated to the city, so we would be able to maintain it. It would not be located under any dwellings, so we would be able to avoid those issues. So what we've kind of talked about with the property owners here is similar to some of these other partnership agreements that we've gotten involved in, I think gotten pretty good with, would be to work with the property owners in this situation where we would perform the engineering services associated with the design of the improvements, the quoting or bidding of the improvements, and then the oversight of the construction of the improvements under the auspices of a professional services agreement with Feenstra and Kim. And we would also pay for the sanitary sewer pipe main material itself. So anticipating our cost somewhere around that $22,000 mark. The estimated cost for the property owners would be probably in that $50,000+ category. So, somewhere maybe in that 70-30 breakdown, with the property owners paying about 70% of the cost, the city paying about 30% of the cost. So this would be under, we've done some of these projects with sidewalks where we have a voluntary assessment agreement, so it would be similar in that context. So as part of the services agreement with Feenstra and Kim, not only would that include design services, but that would also include easement preparation services, as well as preparation of voluntary special assessment agreements. So we would enter into effectively 11 of those, where each impacted property owner would pay their associated costs associated with the new service line itself and their service lateral and those kinds of things. So they would pay for all of those aspects related to that portion of the project and the construction. Again, we would pay for the design of the project, the construction of it, the easement preparation, the voluntary assessment agreements, and those kinds of things. So in terms of the timing on this project, as I mentioned, Mr. Reese has got his approval for a new home from the Board of Adjustment to be constructed there. I don't know what his schedule is on that, but what we would be looking for in terms of a schedule for the project, the sewer project as we would contemplate it here, would be approval of the engineering services agreement this evening, preparation of the plans about the end of August, and then at your meeting on September 7th, we would set the date for a public hearing and bid letting, potentially, where Jason and I are still kind of talking through. It might be that we're able to avoid that process and just obtain competitive quotes because it's under the bid threshold for these kind of improvements for the state. So we may end up going that route. But be that as it may, we would probably target that end of September for a contract award opening, or excuse me, a bid award opening, and then bring it back to you at your first meeting in October. For consideration of a contract and bid, award a bid to a contractor for the project. So start probably mid-October and be done early December on the project. So total cost of the engineering services proposal that you have this evening is essentially it's $14,550. Again, that would include design services as well as construction services, easement services, assessment work, and those kinds of things. So. I guess I don't have anything further on background unless anybody has any questions. Maybe Mike, you know the area pretty well. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, or? It's kind of tucked away there unless you live probably across the street from him. You don't even know it's there.
Well, yeah, it's one of the more unique areas in Clear Lake. I mean, I think the only thing in my mind that can come close to rivaling it is the hodgepodge up in the campgrounds. Because it's got common courtyard back there, and it creates all kinds of interesting challenges for the people that live there. But yeah, and the services come in from just about every direction
yes.
except for space.
Right.
So I mean, it's quite a deal.
Yeah, it's been kind of a vexing situation for quite a while down there, and you know, it's difficult when some of those property owners call and look for help, and you know, there's not anything we can really do to help them out. And been on several of those down there. So, you know, a lot of the houses, you know, they're on North Lakeview Drive, and their sewer services come out to the back into like the courtyard, like you're talking about, tie in out there, and same over on 4th and 3rd. And, yep, so there's 11 of them.
I think a lot of the people along North Shore felt pretty good when that street was rebuilt and things
cleaned up.
Yeah. But it'd be a big improvement for the area.
Any other comments, questions for Scott, council? Thank you, Scott. Review a professional service agreement, Jason Petersburg. And that's for Whitaker Court Sanitary Sewer Project.
Pretty well covered that. I'll just note that I'd say over a year, Jeremy and I have been meeting with these property owners. This initially started as the individual rebuilding that home was going to replace his sanitary sewer, the sanitary sewer main under his home. And we just suggested that maybe he talk to his neighbors and maybe they all want to upgrade. So to date, he's taken it to the association meetings. Him and one of the other neighbors are the ones that have been communicating back to us saying, yes, we're all in favor. So it is a special assessment project. But they're asking for this. They want this done. They see the value in it, and they agree that it is the right time to rebuild this sanitary sewer main. So with that, I'll take any questions. Scott pretty well covered that.
Okay, that's good. And the professional services agreement, if I'm correct here, is the lump sum plus a scope of services, not to exceed $14,550. Is that right? That's correct.
Yep, add them together, yep.
Okay. Any comments, questions, council, of Jason and the agreement? All right, thanks, Jason. Therefore, I'll entertain a motion to approve professional services agreement with Veenstra and Kim with regard to the Whitaker Court Sanitary Sewer Project. Motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Bennett, seconded by Mike, that we approve the Whitaker Court Sanitary Sewer Project. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you. Chief, report. Welcome, Chief.
Mayor, Council, I was going to have a brief report tonight, but knowing the firefighters are here, I'll make it very long for you and expand it for you.
Later.
Really, I just have a brief, we're working on our July stats. I'll have that for you for the next council meeting. I just wanted to highlight, we have two events coming up, Friday and Saturday. We have the car cruise and the car show. And then I believe on Sunday is the Clear Lake Evening Lions hamburger corn feed. Now, I don't think there's any road closures for that, maybe just some no parking area up there by the city park, but the car cruise will have some significant closures or some impediment to traffic on the car cruise night. So they're going to come down Main like they did in 2019 from the high school area to hit South Shore Drive from Main and then go all the way around the lake and then end at the surf. We're going to cut them off there right at Buddy Holly so they can kind of end the chain there. They expect 800 to 1,000 cars, at least for the official cruise, but then people kind of jump on that route. So we really wanted to make sure that traffic would be able to get in and out or egress. So that's why we're going to cut it off there. So there'll be some temporary road closures up there on North Shore, kind of in, again, Mike's neighborhood there at 5th to Buddy Holly, but they'll just, people have to kind of just drive around the barricades. But they will be lining up on Saturday morning on Main, so there'll be no parking there on that north side of the road there as they line up so they can get across to line up for the car show on Saturday morning. So other than that, I think you had the map, or maybe if you didn't, we'll post it on our social media accounts this week, but we'll try to get the message out as best we can. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
Staging area is, you said, by the bus barn there, is that?
Yeah, they were going to try to use that new parking lot, but I don't think it's done yet. So they have that new school lot up there by the Wellness Center paved, but I think they're still working on it. So they'll use the grass lot there by the bus barn and then come down 20th to Main there. So.
And then all the way down through Main Street?
So on Saturday morning, they'll be lined up, just staged there as they, they get there quite early, 6 in the morning, 6 to 7, and then they open the gates up so they can line the cars up down in the uptown area. So we'll have an officer up there at 8th and Main on Saturday morning as well, but they'll just have that temporary no parking for that morning, and then they remove it once the cars all get inside into the gated or the road closed areas down here. So.
Council, any other questions for Chief? Thanks, Chief. Public Work Director's report. Jeremy?
So just a couple updates for the new Clear Lake entryway signs. We were out today and we kind of graded those areas, added some black dirt, tilled it up, kind of prepped it for some hydro seeding just to kind of pretty it up until we determine long-term if we're going to do any landscaping, et cetera, for next spring. So I'll be contacting several different companies to see if and when they can get that hydro seeded and cost-wise. Only other item really is the skid loader that was approved should deliver this week, hopefully Thursday, Friday. So once we get that on, and I think our current skid loader, I think the auction ends tomorrow, so we should have a pretty good idea where we're sitting on there. I think bids are right around 11,500. So I think John Deere's trade value was 8,000, so we're up above that, so we're sitting good. And usually the bids kind of skyrocket the last day anyway, so hopefully we'll sit pretty well there. Other than that, not a whole lot other updates, but any questions for me?
Council, any questions for Jeremy? Things look good, Jeremy.
Right,
Thanks.
thank you.
Wellness Center Director report. Adam, welcome.
Just a quick one from me as well, guys. Construction update. Track upstairs, the suspended tracks poured, smoothed out, looking really, really good. Drywall is starting as well. So again, really starting to take shape. Couple of different change orders. One major one is more on the school side. They're talking about right now, they got an estimate of what it would cost to get a long jump pit installed, because originally in the plans there was no long jump pit. So they bid on that. I believe Doug's going to be taking it to the school board to get approved on that if they want to talk about it.
Did you say long jump pit?
A long jump pit. Yeah. You know what a long jump pit is?
Yeah, I know what it is.
Right. So, I mean, again, in order to be able to have track meets at the facility, I personally think it makes a lot of sense. I think that's something that down the road, they will probably kick themselves in the rear if they don't do it now, because it's going to cost a lot more down the road. But, again, that's on the school side. Assistant position update. I've been personally contacted by a few people, but then also have got a few official resumes emailed to me as well, so that's looking pretty good. Again, looking for the right fit that's going to really be able to streamline the rec sports and activities. So excited about that. Only thing else I have, guys, is Currently working on some bids for furniture, so I met with our interior design person that Atura was kind of set up with at the beginning. And again, a lot of it's just going to be lounge furniture in front of that playground, tables and chairs around the cafe area, tables and chairs for the multi-purpose room, so we're able to have meetings and things like that. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it right now for the furniture. Some benches and things like that for the locker rooms, and upstairs as well for seated areas upstairs where we need it. Working on getting bids for the furniture, obviously, and then the internet, Wi-Fi, sound system, and all the phones. Again, that's a little bit more of a complex system than I thought. I sat down with a couple companies, and there's a lot of pieces to that, so I need to get going on that as much as possible, just because it is a big job. Need to sit down with the Atura too to make sure that we're all on the same page there. And the last thing, really working on some facility management software. Again, that will help with membership, reservations, and things like that. So again, doing different demos with that. I think we got it kind of knocked down to a software program we currently use in the Parks and Rec department, and down to another one that I think might be a little bit better. But again, kind of finalizing some of those bids, and hopefully I'll have that to you guys soon. Any questions?
Council, any questions for Adam? Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Under Mayor's report, you're going to have to bear with me a little bit, but I took some information out of this book. This talks about the establishment of your department. And it goes back to 1871. It's all cursive. And it's under ordinance number 13. And that's 8 pages of script where you dip the pen in the ink and you write it out. One simple page of synopsis for you. You will be tested, and it will be corrected by Assistant Chief Keefe at the end of this, because he has all of this knowledge embedded in his cranial cavity. We are ready to go, sir. Here we are. This was passed October 21st. Your department was passed by City Council on October 21st of 1871. That's why you are 150 years old. That's why the city is 150 years old, because just before Ordinance 13 come all the other ordinance, which establishes this community as the city of Clear Lake. Prior to this, there were 3, you might say, villages. One was down by the outlet, that was called Clear Lake. This, where we are sitting tonight, was called the city of Clear Lake. Out at the cemetery, there was another village called Livonia. Livonia, at one time, was the county seat of Cerro Gordo until it was voted away from us. So here we go. You are established here. Clear Lake Fire Department shall consist of, these are different words than what you have now, some of them. An engineer. He, in those days, it was a he. I don't think they probably didn't even consider females, unfortunately. So the engineer was in charge. Next was the foreman, followed by first and second assistant foreman, followed by the secretary, followed by the warden. Those were all elected at the annual meeting in March of every year. The members were not to exceed 30. You couldn't have any more than 30 in your department. Now keep in mind, that's 1871. The city council shall approve that vote. In other words, whoever is chosen engineer, foreman, and so on by the department, then that has to be approved by the city council vote. The engineer, in other words, chief today, shall take an oath administered by the mayor. The engineer is the highest in command. Then you drop down to the foreman and assistant foreman. You are to develop your own constitution. They were to develop their own constitution, which was subordinate to the city code. When the fire call goes out, they call it fire alarm. I couldn't find out what the alarm was or how it was sounded or any of that. But all are to, here's an interesting word, all firemen are to repair to the place of fire. R-E-P-A-I-R, repair. With fire apparatus under their care. Now, can't you see here? That's why we have the rookies all dressed in red pajamas or underwear and pulling the hose cart down the road. That's their apparatus. You are to extinguish the fire. Hello. Then remove there. Remove, in other words, you are to leave. Remove there from by order of the engineer. So if the chief doesn't tell you to go, you are right there. You are then to return the apparatus. Is that little card? I suppose that's the apparatus. To the place of deposit where it's kept. If you leave the fire without permission, the officer in charge is fined $20. Now that's a lot of money in those days. The officer in charge is fined $20. You cannot use the fire apparatus for your own personal use. Interesting. If you do, you're fined $5. If you don't attend the fire, you're fined $1. Now, during the fire, the engineer or mayor may order the building torn down, this is the building on fire, or surrounding buildings blown up to arrest the progress of the fire. It kind of makes sense back then. You know, you've got that little hose cart. You know, what's blown up? Interesting ammunition they might have for that. Also, the city marshal, cop, all right, shall repair, there's that word again, shall repair immediately to the fire. And if he doesn't, he's fined $5 and removed from office. Anyway, that's all in here. That's all in here. That's where I took it from. Interesting. Okay, you know, we really get serious here. We really do, we cherish this department. I mean, it's a fantastic department. Always has been and always will be. If you go down through fire chiefs real quick, and some of these early on, you know, we don't know, and those were called foremen, of course, but fire chiefs that I can recall people talking about. I wasn't here at that time, but you had Keith McGowan. He was up to 1954. Don Huey, 54 to 68. Pat Stork, 68 to 76. I remember him because I was in that junior high fire, and they were struggling to get that one out because of pressure. 76 to 82, Jim Dyer. 82-96, John Simpson. 96 to 2000, Rob Bell. And our present fire chief, Doug Myers. So, you know, there's a lot of others up there too, if you're interested. But, you know, what do we have, Scott? That new firehouse, fire station, we got 80-some%.
81. Yeah.
82% of the community voted, we want that. And we want that just as it's drawn there, and we have that. And I think we've got the best, certainly for a town our size and in this area. And you guys are going to celebrate the 150 on 9/11, a very momentous time in the history of this country, by bringing out a firefighter from New York City who was in two of the buildings, I think I'm correct, and that were burning. He came out, what's the last name, firefighter Trujillo, or on that, and we all need to get there that evening. Very, very momentous time, and we need to have that. Here's a proclamation. with regard to you folks. And it's recognizing the 150th anniversary of the establishment of the Clear Lake Fire Department. Whereas the firefighter has been a part of the American scene since early colonial days, from the bucket brigades to the modern fire departments and sophisticated equipment and technology of today. The modern day firefighter must face unprecedented, unique challenges and in most difficult conditions with great risk and sacrifice. And whereas the services of the fire department are often the first to be sought in emergency situations in the community, no matter the purpose, the firefighter has stood ready, day or night, to respond to the call to serve. And whereas the City of Clear Lake officially established the Clear Lake Fire Department by passage and approval of Ordinance Number 13 in 1871, and whereas the Clear Lake Fire Department had more than 19 fire chiefs and foremans over its 150 years, with Fire Chief Doug Myers fulfilling the office currently. And whereas the City of Clear Lake wishes to acknowledge the dedication and service to the community by the Clear Lake Fire Department on its 150th anniversary, and whereas in order to provide an opportunity for the City of Clear Lake to demonstrate its appreciation for the immeasurable sacrifices and contributions of our fire department has bestowed upon the community for 150 years, it is appropriate to issue this proclamation recognizing the Clear Lake Fire Department and its past and present members for devotion to this community. Now, therefore, I, as Mayor of Clear Lake, do hereby designate August 2nd, 2021 as a day of recognition for the Clear Lake Fire Department for its 150 years of service to the City of Clear Lake and the citizens of the city. I further call upon the residents of the City of Clear Lake to join me in the declaration of recognition and congratulations for this long-standing dedication to our community. In witness whereof, I hereunto sign my hand and cause the seal of the City of Clear Lake to be affixed. Thank you, thank you, thank you, guys. Please stand. Let's give them a big. Have any comments or? You bet. That's what I like to hear. Yeah, yeah. Once again, thank you very, very much, and we all look forward to 9/11 this year, a very, very important time. City Administrator.
Well, at this point, we're about halfway done with the agenda, so I'll just be really quick. The blue sheet in your packet, I did reach out to get a proposal from RDG. They're going to be here Wednesday at 10 o'clock, start doing kind of a historic assessment on the seawall project. So with your concurrence, we can enter into that agreement. It's $4,800. They'll prepare an assessment of it and kind of tell us what direction we need to go as far as overall scope for rehabilitation improvements at the seawall. So if everybody's good with that, just a head nod's good enough. And if anybody's interested in joining, I think Nelson, myself, Historical Society is going to have some representation there. So on the this Wednesday at 10, we'll go down there and take a look. So that's all.
Vote on this, right?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. And that amount, what did you say? $4,800, yeah. All right, I entertain a motion to approve the proposal from RDG seawall rehabilitation improvements in the amount of $4,800. Motion, please.
So offered. Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Bennett, that we approve the seawall rehabilitation improvements with RDG. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Can I
Oh,
make
I'm
a
sorry.
comment? Sorry. This one's not been sitting right with me for several days in light of certain comments out there in the community. And if Scott hadn't run this meeting a little longer than most, I had plenty of things to say, but Mike keeps he has to go to the bathroom or something. So I've got to cut it short here. But Yeah, just a couple of things. I've been involved, and many of the men on this dais have, and many of our staff, for over a year, trying to solve this problem. And we've run into some problems along the way, including a contractor that took something on and couldn't deliver because someone left that was doing it in his employment. And on top of that, we budgeted $125,000 for this project. So right off the bat, I would like to say, save the seawall was never a question. I mean, it just wasn't. No one sitting at this dais would have ever considered anything except doing whatever it took to repair our valued seawall. I think all the gentlemen at the dais here would agree with me in a big way here. And I guess I take a little umbrage at this whole concept that we don't care about the seawall. We do, and we're going to do what it takes. And I had a whole list of things that the city government has helped save, but I'm not going to bore you with those because most of you know what many of those were. So I just felt I needed to say something. So amen, and we'll move on.
I'd just add to that real quick, Mike. I know you were involved early on when we met with the contractor down there, and that historic preservation consultant took some samples of the seawall because you were there and had the conversation with us about a year ago. And unfortunately, some medical situations took place there and did cause some setbacks. But yeah, we've been working on it for quite a while. So.
Good comments. Thank you. Anything else before I call the vote? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Any other business, council? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.